So last session we were covering the 5 forces of competition model, and basically we covered some of these aspects like threats of new entrants, bargaining powers of buyers, threat of substitute products, and rivalry among company firms. So barriers to entry, we want to cover that now. When there is barriers to entry for your competitors, then we're looking at economies of scale, product differentiation, capital requirements, switching costs, access to distribution channels, cost disadvantages, dependent on scale, government policy, and expected retaliation. And please, again and again, silent your and mute your microphones when you come in, so that there is no disturbance for the class. So let's get back to the topic. So economies of scale, basically, when the concept is when you produce more, then it will reduce your cost. So the cost of producing more of the same product overall would be less for in the long run. So let's say if you're producing 10 products or whatever number of products, you have an overhead that will break even at a certain cost. So let's say when you're selling your products at $20 each, then selling 20 items will pay you off. You will break even selling 20 products, and then from there on, whatever extra product that you're using, you have already made your cost. So the rest is just revenue. So that's why we say 20, whatever above 20 that is your break even that you're producing, you're actually reducing your cost, because the cost per item will be less. So 20 items is, let's say, $20 each cost, but 21 is like one extra $20 is the benefit that is you're getting on top. So product number 21 will not cost you anything, and it's just revenue. So at the product 100, you only you break even at 20 products, so 80 products that you sold is just revenue. So that's what we say economies of scale. And then economies of scale is when companies using economies of scale can make money, and that's how the barriers of entry will work. So product differentiation, how your basically differentiation helps your company and your products be different, and that's also another barriers to entry, because not every company can copy your products. Then capital requirements, it requires capital and money. The cost disadvantages. Okay, Mr. Saifullah, I don't understand your question. Detail the cost disadvantages independent of the scale. What do you mean? Can you explain a little bit? Explain which item. Are you talking about economies of scale or disadvantages of independent of scale? Cost disadvantages independent of scale. Where did you get that from? Is it one of the bullet points we're discussing, or you just generally want to understand cost disadvantages? Yes, that's correct. Yeah. So then, what is the question? Cost disadvantages independent of the scale. Costs do not necessarily have disadvantages. Oh, you're a few points ahead of me. We are now talking about capital requirements. So give us a few moments, we'll get there. We are at the capital requirements now. I thought you were talking about economy to scale. Okay, yeah. So capital requirements, we cover that and then we get there. So capital requirements is the capital you need for your production. So if a new company is coming in, they need to have a certain level of capital, and if they don't, they can't necessarily enter. So these are the barriers to enter you're discussing, where other competitors need to have all these items in order to be able to compete against you. Then switching costs. When you put some switching costs for your customers, let's say you have a certain product, you introduce it to the customers, you start purchasing it, and then you introduce a concept called switching costs, meaning that if they want to switch from your product or your company into another product, it might cost them a little bit. Let's say you sell them a device. Let's say if it's a internet or communication company, sometimes they give you a certain receiver that you have to purchase or pay some money or install a dish. And then if you want to change into a new company, you need to get a new dish, new receiver. That's extra switching costs you got to pay. So that way they'll discourage you to change from their product to another, because you know that there is a cost involved, and you try just to stick to what you have, not to incur any costs. Then access to distribution channels. When companies are selling their products, they need the materials in order to make that product, and then for their production, they need access to distribution channel. They need to have access to distribution channel in order to be able to produce that product. So not every company will have a full access to distribution channels, or not a complete version of distribution channels. That's how they are limited. Then cost disadvantages of independent of a scale. So going back to the first one, economies of scale, we talked about basically after a certain number of products that you make, you'll break even, and then the more products you make, the less cost per item you will have. But there are the disadvantages there as well. Like sometimes for you to sell that certain number of products, let's say you might need to sell 100 products, and then if you're a company, let's say you're producing jet engines or those expensive machineries, for you to sell 20 items, it's a lot, because you might not be able to sell 20 items. So the cost has disadvantages for you. You have to incur a pretty high cost at the beginning in order to be able to get there to compete with the major companies. So there are cost disadvantages. So there are costs that are pretty high, and then for you to be able to incur those costs and wait for your products to sell and then get back that money, it's a high risk. So that's the cost disadvantages. And going back to access to distribution channels, we were talking about it as when you are in production, you need to have access to distribution channels to get the raw materials, buy the materials, and then ship them out to your production and start producing the items, making the changes, manufacturing and all that. So not everyone, let's say you're a company, you have access to 10 distribution channels, but a new company, when they come to the industry, not necessarily they'll have a full access to all the 10 distribution channels. They might have access to one, and then so they will be so limited when they are not able to basically, have access to all those companies. Then we have some comments from Mr. Samir. Cost advantages first. Cost Advantages that establish the firms in particular industry and which the users cannot duplicate. Subsidies such as raw materials, property, technology, prime real estate locations. Yeah, very good, good example and explanation. That's also part of the cost disadvantages. So cost disadvantages are those costs that you as a new company will have to incur. As I mentioned, like a jet engine company, it's very expensive to produce one item. So for you to sell that one item, it's a lot. Whereas one company that has already been established, it's much easier for them to basically cover those costs because they have established some relationship with certain customers, and some of those products are already sold, even though they are under the production. So it's that concept over there. And then government policies. So policies for government, they might favor certain companies that are already established or have relationship, or certain rules and regulations give them benefits or disadvantages. So you as a new entrant, for you to be able to familiarize yourself with the rules and regulations and the policies, it will take you some time. And also it might be very costly, because if you make a mistake, you might even lose your license if there's a license needed, or you might jeopardize your image of the company if the government wants to stop you from doing business for a while. So all these are pretty important, and it could be very scary. Then expected retaliation. Retaliation from other companies, other competitors. You see like Microsoft or Google, they do a lot of retaliation. Like when a new company comes in, they try to stop them by basically spending money in order to bring them down. So these type of retaliations, I mean, some of them are illegal. You cannot harm them, but you cannot come up with a campaign or marketing strategy to bring the competitors down. And that way, it's basically you're doing some retaliation. And for a new entrant, it's basically a big barrier. So again, like for product differentiation, unique products, customer loyalties, products at competitive prices. These are how you differentiate your products. Switching costs, like one-time costs. The example of getting a dish or a receiver for a satellite company, new equipment you need to buy, retaining employees, or psychic cost of ending a relationship. So you feel you're ending in a relationship, and that emotional, psychological aspect to it. Or capital requirements, physical facilities you might need, inventories, marketing activities, availability of capital, and then access to distribution channels, stocking or shelf space that you have, price breaks, or cooperative advertising allowances. That's also another concept. Sometimes when you're in a good relationship with a distribution channel, they give you some advertisement for free or some promotions, so that way you will save some money. And if you're new, you will probably won't be able to get it unless after a certain time and you establish that relationship. Yep, another good comment from Mr. Khalkiar. Yes, barriers to entry is any barriers for your competitors to come in. So whatever makes it difficult for them to compete against you. So these are the concepts we've been talking about. Last session we covered some, and now we are finishing rest. So this is part of the external analysis, the threats and opportunities. These are the threats that we are talking about. Then cost disadvantage is independent of the scale. So proprietary product technology. So the technology that you need. Yes, exactly. You need to taking these items into consideration when you are new to a market, And also you need to take into consideration when you're not new and you're already in the market, and you try to focus to make these barriers as difficult as possible. Price breaks means that the promotions they give you, like the distribution channels might give you a price break, means price benefits. They give you some discounts because of the number of the products you order, or because of being a loyal customer. They might give you like 10–15% discount. So these are price breaks. So these are some discounts that the supplier will give you. Capital cost is very huge. Yes, you need big facilities. Sometimes they might cost you a lot. So for those high-tech technologies, you need to spend a lot of money, thousands of dollars, to set up the facilities for you to be able to even function. So that huge cost that you need to incur in the beginning, that might be a big problem for you. And favorable access to raw materials. So again, that's going back to the disadvantages that a new entrant will have compared to someone that has already been established. Desirable locations, what locations you can get the products. Then the government policy, you get licensing and permit requirements, the regulations. Sometimes there are regulations and deregulations that will, the change in them can cause a lot of troubles for new entrants. Expected retaliation, responses by existing competitors may depend on a firm's present state in industry. Like as I mentioned, like Microsoft or big companies, a lot of times they do a lot of campaigns to respond to new entrants, their marketing campaign, and bring them down. Then bargaining power of suppliers. So supplier power increases when suppliers are large and few in number. So we are talking about a concept called bargaining power of suppliers. And then basically what we mean by that is how much power your suppliers have in negotiating with you. So that is when, let's say, talking of Walmart, the Walmart, when they're dealing with their suppliers, that they give them the raw materials, they don't, the suppliers to Walmart, they don't necessarily have that much of a power or bargaining power. Because Walmart is so huge, they have to agree and accept whatever condition they put for them. But suppliers, when they are large, like different from the case of Walmart, when you are, let's say, a new retailer, and then there are several suppliers out there, you don't have much of a say. So there are so much suitable products, or there are not any. So when the substitute products are not available, they have higher bargaining power, actually. Then individual buyers are not large, and customers are suppliers, and there are many of them. So as you can see here, there are not so many individual buyers, and the suppliers have more power when it comes to choosing what they want to give you and what they do not want to give you. Suppliers' goods are critical to buyers. So when you need those raw materials so bad, they can choose and give you, conditions that they want. And then I see another comment for Mr. Khalid. Various sentences may also be legally imposed. The commonest of these are licensing requirements. Mr. Noristani, can you explain what you exactly mean? It depends on situation. What depends on situation? And again, please make sure, if you're not going to talk in the class, mute your microphone. So please, I urge you to mute your microphone because it will disturb the class. Yeah, bargaining power. Yes, we're talking about who has the bargaining power. Somebody's whispering in the class. Please Could you please mute your microphone? And there's noise and somebody has not muted their microphone. So make sure you mute your microphone, please. Okay. So yeah, bargaining power, yes, it depends on the scenario. So that's what we are discussing. And bargaining power is the ability to influence the selling of prices. So the more concentrated and control the supply, the more power it yields, I believe you want to say, against the market. Monopolistics or quasi-monopolistic suppliers will use their power to extract better terms, higher profit. And in a truly competitive market, no supplier can set the prices. Yeah, true. Sometimes customers have the advantage in bargaining, and sometimes the seller. Yes, usually customers doing bargaining powers. Yeah, you need to understand that this bargaining power is not just bargaining over the price, it's bargaining over everything. It's like over the condition, over how to deliver the products. Like if the suppliers have higher bargaining power, they choose how to deliver the products to you. Because in this case, you would be the customer. You as a producer are a customer because you need those raw materials to produce your products. So suppliers can pose a threat to integrate forward into buyer's industry also. So sometimes when the suppliers are so powerful, they might decide to end up doing what you're doing. I mean, they start from raw materials, give you the raw materials to produce, but if they decide to use the raw materials instead of a company that they themselves make the production, you know, that's a threat they will pose to your company. Terms and conditions before you finalize your contract. That's true. So now on the other side, when we have bargaining power of buyers, so buyers are large. So whichever side is larger, when you have more buyers, buyers have power over the suppliers. But then you have more suppliers, suppliers have power over the buyers. So buyers purchase a large portion of an industry's total output. So they can buy a big portion of that supplier's product. So then they will have control. Like back to the Walmart example, Walmart buys a big chunk of the supplier's raw material. So if Walmart stops purchasing products from certain suppliers, they certainly go out of business. So Walmart kind of owns them in a sense. So this is important. Buyers and purchases are a significant portion of suppliers' annual revenue, exactly the same example. And buyers can switch to another product without incurring any high cost. Like the case of Walmart or even Costco, which is another low-cost retail shop, they focus on the lowest cost. So if you as a supplier are not giving me the lowest cost today, I'm going to stop purchasing from you. That easy. So no cost, and you might go out of business because you are focusing on that revenue you make on selling me your products as a big producer or retail shop. So they can switch very fast, and buyers pose threat, integrate backward. Like in the case of Walmart, Walmart has started to do a lot of supplying for their own products. So a lot of these supplying coming from their own, or even Google, you know, they're famous for having this city of Google, like their companies, their workforce, they produce their own vegetables, their own fruits, and like everything they try to internalize. So industries using diamonds such as jewelry and electronics face the huge power of in dominant market share. Yes, very good example. More concentrated. Okay, so we covered that. The threat of substitute products. So the threat of substitute products increases when buyers face few switching costs. So when there are few switching costs, there is a threat that the buyers will just change into a new product because it's not going to cost them anything, or the substitute product's price is lower. So when they actually use the substitute products, not only they will incur any cost, but they will save money because the new substitute is actually cheaper. It's even worse in that case. And then substitute products quality and performance are equal or greater. So when the other product they're going to use is even better, so there's a good chance that they'll go for that substitute products. Then differentiated industry products that are valued by customers reduce this threat. So if you as a company are producing or providing the products that are differentiated, that are so good, that are different in quality from those common in the market, then you have a good chance of surviving in that market. Suppliers like Walmart, as a control, they can see through the internet of each item. Yeah, they have very much power over suppliers. And then intensity of rivalry among competitors. So industry rivalry increases when there are numerous or equally balanced competitors. So when there are few huge companies doing business, so the intensity, is less, right? Because there are only a few, just a handful. But then you have a lot of competitors out there, so that will be like balanced all among those, rivalry means competition, Ms. Akbari. And just to confirm, can everybody see the slides? Is everybody able to see the slides? So for you that you cannot see the slides, I'm guessing it's probably your internet or your computer, because everybody else can see it pretty well. Okay, so going back to the concept we were talking about, so rivalry or competition is actually the competition among those companies that are in the market. So the more there are, the more competitors there are, the competition will be more, right? So if there's only a few or a handful, so the competition is going to be different. And then industry growth slows or declines. So when the intensity of rivalry actually increases, the industry actually also grows fast, because basically they actually work and walk in line together. So when there are high fixed costs or high storage costs, that's also another concept. So there's a big competition when there will be a high cost for people to store and put their stocks or materials in storages. So there's lack of differentiation. So again, switching costs are not much, and there's not much differentiation. Everybody can produce that product, so then there is a very good chance of steeper competition. So when the strategic stakes are high and there are a lot of strategic or strategic methods that are utilized by the companies, so that kind of increases the competition. So when high exit barriers prevent competitors from leaving the industry. So that's also a big competition factor when there is a high exit barrier. So you cannot just easily exit from the industry and go to another market. There's a huge cost. So that's how you'll focus on the competition and try to stay and survive. So interpreting industry analysis again. So why are we looking at all these and trying to understand them? Because for you, when you're starting up a business, you got to know whether an industry is attractive or unattractive. So when the suppliers and buyers have strong positions, low entry barriers, strong threats for substitute products, intense rivalry, it shows to you if you are going to that industry, then you know that that industry is not going to be very attractive, or it's not going to make you a lot of money. A question here we have high fixed costs or high storage costs. Fixed costs and storage costs. Fixed cost means the fixed cost you need to incur. That could be your electricity, the rent you pay for your lots, for your factory or whatever. All these fixed costs that every single month or every year you have to incur no matter what. So those are your fixed costs. If they're high, it's going to be trouble for you. Storage cost means when you have extra inventory, you need to put that in a storage. So that's also could cost you a lot of money. So we should not invest in such a market. That's correct. That's what I want to say. So when you have low profit potential, you don't want to go into a business or industry that is going to give you just a very low time, little bit of profit. You want to invest in a market that is attractive to you. So what is an attractive market? So attractive industry is the one that there is a high entry barriers. Not everybody can enter. Then suppliers and buyers are weak. There is no big power for suppliers or buyers. It's a kind of weak position for suppliers and buyers. And then few threats of substitute products. There are not much of substitute products. Like when Google started their business, like a lot of stuff that they're doing is brand new. There is nobody else out there. So, and there is nobody else who's going to threat their buyers or suppliers. No, not everyone can come in and step in that type of business because it's pretty expensive. And then moderate rivalry among competitors. There is not like a stiff competition. In the case of Google, I mean, there's kind of a tough competition going on between Google and Microsoft and all those big boys. But generally, then there's not a big competition, and it's just mild. So you have a good chance of surviving. And high entry barriers, we talked about it, means all those barriers to entry that we discussed. When there are a lot of them, like basically the government, the policy that we discussed, the cost, and all those different concepts that we just discussed in a few slides back. Like here, the cost of managed government policy, product differentiation, switching costs, all these. When there are so many of them, it's difficult. Mid-level competition means that it's not a high level of competition. It's medium. It's kind of, mild competition going on. So here in this market, it's an attractive. There's a good potential for profit. That's where we want to be. So competitor analysis. So when we do competitor analysis, competitor intelligence, we look at the ethical gathering of needed information. So competitors' direction, where they're going, and then capabilities and intentions. So what are their strategies, what they intend to do, their beliefs about industry, and their capabilities. So all these are important when it comes to competitors. Okay, so this is also something useful for your projects. You want to make sure when you are doing this competitor analysis, you cover their objectives. Objectives is part of their, if you remember the vision, and values and objectives. So that's part of the foundation of every business. So you got to know what's their objective, short term or long term. And then current strategy, what type of strategy they use. So when you're comparing competitors together, you compare their strategies, and you find out which one is using a more beneficial and successful strategy? Competitors' beliefs about industry. What are the assumptions? How do they assume the market to be? And then competitors' capabilities. So future objectives, the questions you want to ask and get the answer in order to be able to do that is, how do our goals compare with our competitor goals? So when you compare your goals and with their goals, that gives you a good perspective. Where will the emphasis be placed in the future? And what is the attitude towards risk? So all these are kind of important when it comes to, attitude. And then current strategy, how are we currently competing? Are you successfully competing right now? I mean, when you're doing the competitor analysis, you got to know whether you have been successfully competing against your competitors or you've been losing out. So that's a good question for you. And does this strategy support changes in the competitive structure? So if you are coming up with a competitive structure, you got to be able to make those changes. And those changes, like the current strategy, you got to make sure that it's useful. Then assumptions. Do we assume the future will be volatile, or are we operating under a status quo, or what assumptions do our competitors hold about the industry and themselves? So assumptions are very important. When there are certain assumptions in place, you want to know what they are, how they affect you and your competitors, what assumptions you have, what assumptions your competitors have. Competitor analysis is an essential component of corporate strategy. Yes, true. It aims to systematically study information about competitors, products, research and development, and so on. So it's very helpful and useful, and it's important actually for you to succeed because you are competing against your rivals and you want to know how good you're performing. So it's good to know what aspects you need to look at. And then capabilities. What are your strengths and weaknesses? How do we rate compared to our competitors? So again, you got to understand that when you compare yourself to a competitor, you want to compare your weaknesses and strengths also. So then responses you will get, what will our competitors do in your future for the future objective? For the second box, current strategy, where do we hold an advantage over the other competitors? And then for the capabilities is, how will this change in relationship with our competitors? Also, it will be part of the assumptions as well. I mean, these questions are related also to all these four boxes. So that's for that. So any questions so far? Any questions, any comments before we move on to today's slide? I mean, the next chapter's slide. Yes, SWOT analysis, this is part of SWOT analysis, by the way. This first part, we were talking about external analysis. When you are comparing your competitors, is part of the SWOT analysis, is the part that we call it threats and opportunities. So this is already part of your SWOT analysis. So we covered the opportunities and threats, the OT part. So next part, we will go into internal analysis, which is your strengths and weaknesses. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Nuristan. I have a question. Okay, so since there's no question, so let's move on to the next slide. So now internal analysis. We are going to talk about strengths and weaknesses. So internally. So once again, I want to focus and highlight on this factor that when you are talking about SWOT analysis, it's divided into external and internal. So internal analysis is when you're talking about your own strengths and weaknesses. You're not talking about other competitors. So please understand that. And then high entry barriers, we talked about it, is the barriers for the competitors to step into the industry and market. So the higher those barriers and difficulties are, the lesser chance of new competitors to come in and step in. So we discussed that, we covered all those barriers and discussed how they affect your business. So what about high entry barriers? You want to know, Mr. Summit? And then Mr. Harun, the SWOT analysis provides information that is helpful in matching the firm's resources and capabilities to competitive environment which it operates. As such, it is instrumental in strategy formulation and selection. The following diagram shows how a SWOT analysis fits into an environmental scan. So let's go back to the slides. So competitive advantage again. Firms achieve a strategic competitiveness and earn above average returns when their core competencies are effectively acquired, they're bundled and leveraged. So when firms are able to do the at the above average level, so meaning that, I mean, average being what the like a normal regular company or regular product for any company will look like. And then basically when they are able to earn that above average returns, like and their core competencies, those stuff that they are okay, they're well acquired. So you have acquired certain core competencies, certain activities that you are able to do successfully, good, and at an above average level. Then you are able to bundle them together, and then you want to leverage. Leverage meaning that you're able to have leverages or powers over other products or companies. So over time, the benefits of any value-creating strategy can be duplicated by competitors. So don't get me wrong. We're not suggesting that if you have all these core competencies, they're going to stay there forever because companies are trying to compete against you and also copy and imitate what you're doing. So there's a very good chance after a short time you'll lose those core competencies. You should be evolving and improving those every single day. So you cannot just say because today I'm better, I'm going to be better forever just doing the same thing. That is not correct. Look at the successful companies around you. The only reason they've been successful is just because they're improving and bettering their industry and services every single day. Okay, so are we clear so far? Mm-hmm. Okay, from Mr. Harp. When a firm sustains profits, exceeds the average industry, the firm is said to possess a competitive advantage over its rivals. The goal of much of business strategies is sustainable. Yeah, that's true. So an advantage that a firm has over other competitors, allowing it to generate sales and margins greater value. The more difficult it is for competitors to neutralize the advantage. That is true. Okay. So sustainability of competitive advantage is the function of the rate of core competence obsolescence due to environmental changes. So when there are environmental changes, a lot of times your core competencies might change. So as the industry grows and changes, your core competencies should change as well. Competitive advantage give a company an edge over its rivals, an ability to generate greater value for the firm and shareholders. The more sustainable the competitive advantage, the more difficult it is for competitors to neutralize the advantage. So the availability of substitutes for core competence. When there are available substitutes, when you have a core competence, but there are substitutes available. So if your core competence is not unique enough that could be substituted by something else, this is not a great core competency for you. And then difficulty competitors have when they are duplicating the core products. So it should be difficult for your competitors to duplicate. If it's easy for them to duplicate what you're doing, it's not the best idea to focus on that. You need to change it because it's easy for them to do exactly the same thing you do. So you want to make sure you're differentiating yourself enough and you are doing it the way that nobody else can copy. I mean, for sure, after a certain time, they'll be able to copycat, but you want to focus on the differentiation and make sure that not everyone is able to, copy. Okay? So that's really important. Okay, so now I want to show you guys let me see all your comments. Can we also add costs here too? You can add costs. The one is competing with you, your advantage. It depends upon industry need for people. Example, electricity in Afghanistan. Benefits, the rate of core competencies of sources. Or price. People will have to pay the price. Yep. Okay, so I want to show you a video clip on. Okay. So now let's watch a video together from Mr. Michael Porter. And then we'll move on. This is related to the 5 forces that he discussed. So,
I'm Tom Stewart, editor and managing director of the Harvard Business Review. Our guest today is Michael Porter, professor at Harvard University and head of the Institute for Strategy and Competitiveness. He is the author of the forthcoming HBR article, The 5 Competitive Forces That Shape Strategy, a reaffirmation, update, and extension of his groundbreaking 1979 article, How Competitive Forces Shape Strategy. Mike, thanks for joining the program. To start, let's remind our viewers of what the 5 competitive forces are.
Well, Tom, the basic idea of the competitive forces starts with the notion that competition is often looked at too narrowly by managers. And the 5 forces say that, yes, you're competing with your direct competitors, but you're also going to fight for profits with a broader, extended set of competitors, customers who have bargaining power, suppliers who can have bargaining power, new entrants who might come in and try to grab a piece of the action, and substitute products or services that essentially place a constraint or a cap on your profitability and growth. So the 5 forces is kind of a holistic way of looking at any industry and understanding the structural underlying drivers of profitability and competition.
So I use these to think about my rival makes it difficult for me. The threat of substitutes means I can't overcharge. The threat of new entrants means I can't overcharge.
Right.
And the same thing with the
buyers and suppliers. And that there's underlying drivers of each of those forces that the model really sort of unveils, and then you can actually apply this. Every industry is different. Every industry will have a different set of economic fundamentals, but the 5 forces help you home in on, first of all, what's really causing profitability in the industry? What are the trends that are most likely to be significant in changing the game in the industry? Where are the constraints which, if you can relax them, might allow you to find a really strong competitive position?
So how would you apply this analysis to an industry? Airlines, for example.
Airlines is a great industry. It's actually, you'll see in the article, you've seen in the article, that there's a chart that compares profitability of industries, and airlines, I think, has been on the bottom of that list for decades. It's one of the least profitable industries known to man. And the 5 forces really allows you very quickly to understand why. I mean, let's just go around the chart. The nature of rivalry is incredibly intense, and it's almost exclusively on price. It's been very hard to differentiate, to get the customer to wait even an extra 2 or 3 minutes for another flight if they can get on the flight at a cheaper price. So there's been a very intense price competition, low barriers to entry, a constant stream of new airlines coming into the industry, despite the fact that the profitability is low. It's always puzzled me.
It's a low barrier to entry because you can rent a plane.
You can rent a plane. You can rent a plane. You can lease a gate. It's all generic technology. You can start with one flight between 2 city pairs. You don't have to. There's no real need to have a whole network in the beginning. And yet people keep coming in. I think it's just one of those sexy industries. It's a great example of how sexiness or coolness or hotness or cheapness has nothing to do with industry profitability. The underlying structure is what drives profitability. The customer is very fickle and price sensitive. Suppliers of aircraft and aircraft engines and even aircraft gates at airports now have a lot of clout. They can bargain away, mark most of the profits. GE and Rolls-Royce and Airbus and Boeing make a lot more money than airlines. They get most of the profit. And then, of course, there's always the substitute of getting on the train or driving your car or shipping your goods by air, and that's kind of kept a consumer.
You have powerful suppliers of labor too. That's
right, exactly. There's a great case where you have unionized labor, and unlike other industries, in this industry, particularly with the pilots, the labor can literally shut you down, and there's no way around it. So it's an industry where there are spurts of what you might call mediocre profitability, punctuated by long periods of terrible profitability.
So every one of the 5 forces is very strong in that industry. Yeah. You could take another industry where the 5 forces are relatively benign.
Right. Like soft drinks. I mean, soft drinks has been a license to mint money, and again, it's the opposite kind of analysis. When I talk with students, we kind of joke around. There's 5-star industries where all the forces are attractive, like soft drinks. There's 0-star industries where all the forces are unfavorable, like airlines. And we're always trying to understand, okay, what's the configuration of underlying economic drivers that's going to really shape the profit potential of this industry? And then armed with that insight, what do I do about it? You know, how do I try to relax the constraint that's holding back industry profitability? How can I position myself to kind of insulate from some of the gale winds of those forces? And those implications of the 5 forces are something that this new article has developed in much more detail.
You conceived this framework nearly 3 decades ago, and it has been the most extensively used both in management scholarship and management practice of any strategy framework, and it really has it changed the definition of strategy in a lot of ways. In these 3 decades, what have you learned? What have you learned about the application of these ideas in the real world?
Well, the wonderful thing, of course, we learned is that these concepts can be applied to literally any industry, to product, to service, high-tech, low-tech, emerging economies, developed economies. Indeed, what one of the powers of the framework is that it helps you avoid getting trapped or tricked by the latest trend or the latest technological sensation, and really allows you to focus on the underlying fundamentals. The Internet's a good example. We got very, very confused by the Internet because people saw the Internet as a force as opposed to really enabling technology that might or might not impact the underlying structure of the industry. So one thing I've learned is the framework is very, very robust. But I've also learned that there's a lot of confusion and complexity in actually applying the framework in actual practice. And we tried to clear as many of those areas up as we could in this new article. For example, how to think about rivalry. How do we understand when rivalry is really positive sum, which allows companies to, many companies to do well, and when does rivalry become really zero sum, where everybody's kind of dragged down into kind of a destructive battle that you can't win?
I can understand zero sum. I mean, if we get in a price war, the only one who wins is the consumer, which is nice if you're a consumer.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by positive sum competition?
Well, the trouble with the zero sum competition is then the consumer gets a low price, but they really get no choice. And a positive sum competition is where companies can compete on different attributes, services, features, customer support that's actually relevant to particular groups of customers. And the most really positive sum competition is where companies are really competing on different things in order to meet the needs of different.
So we're growing the pie, and there's a piece for each.
There's a piece. In fact, one of the things we talk about in the new article, one of the things I did in the new article that we really probably didn't have the experience to do so many years ago was really talk a lot about the implications. If this is the way competition works, what do you do about it? And one of them might be in some industries, rather than go for market share against your rivals, you might be much better off just really expanding the pie, expanding the whole profit pool of the industry. That may be the best way for a market leader to actually improve their circumstances rather than to trigger a destructive battle with their head-to-head rivals.
How should a company get started using the 5 forces framework? You're working your strategy up. You decide this really works for me. How do you begin?
Well, I think industry analysis and looking at the competitive environment is, of course, probably the starting basic discipline of any strategy formulation process. You don't know what your industry looks like. If you don't know how it's changing. If you don't know what the drivers of competition are, you might as well. Strategy is going to be marginally useful if not destructive. So we've got to start with industry analysis. Figuring out what your industry is and drawing the right boundaries.
And that's not always easy.
It's not always easy. We've added a box in this new article which really addresses that question because I encountered so many companies that struggled with industry definition. A identifying really what the industry structure is in your particular industry. And then there's another thing that a lot of managers do. They kind of go through the industry analysis and they say, okay, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. So this is an attractive industry or an unattractive industry. But of course, the real question is, how's that industry changing? Some have believed taken the 5 forces as really a static snapshot. But of course, the 5 forces give you the tools for understanding the dynamics and where is that industry structure changing? How are buyers and suppliers and substitutes and potential entry evolving? And then what implications does that hold for your strategy? How do you position yourself to find that spot within the industry that you're where you can command a really good profit given the 5 forces? How can you maybe reshape the nature of the industry structure? And we've got some great new examples that are very, very contemporary in this article, but I think will help the manager community and the investor community really understand the application of this.
Sometimes when people think about strategy, they think about a group of people maybe the sort of elite strategy priesthood that goes and does it and
Please make sure you mute your microphone. Make sure your microphones are muted.
Very, very broadly understood in the organization. I mean, and the thing about it is that managers, even rank and file employees, it's intuitive. People understand. And we have these customers, we have these suppliers. We're struggling with them every day. They're trying to get a better deal. We're trying to get a better deal. So intuitively, I think this is a way of helping people sort of step back from all the excruciating little details that characterize any business and say, what's really important here? And then of course, we've learned that strategy is completely useless, again, unless the results of the strategy process, the position that you choose to occupy, the way you're going to drive your company, is well understood quite broadly. Because the number one purpose of strategy is alignment. It's really to get all the people in the organization making good choices, reinforcing each other's choices, because everybody's pursuing a common value proposition, a common way of gaining competitive advantage. So, I remember when I wrote this article, there were many people who believed that strategy documents should be locked in the safe at night and should not be made available to the rank and file. There was a concern that some competitor would find some secret. Well, we've actually learned now that it's the opposite. You've got your employees got to know your strategy, your channels have to know your strategy, your suppliers have to know your strategy, and your competitors probably do it already. Well, and frankly, if again, there's competition is not zero sum. If every company finds a unique need that it can set out to meet, if it tries to deliver something different than its rivals, multiple rivals can be successful. And if your competitors kind of understand what you stand for and what you're committed to, maybe they'll make a different choice, rather than get dragged into these kind of mindless price wars that we see in the industry.
The 5 forces that shape strategy have been around for 30 years. They're going to be around for, well, they've been around. They've been around for long. They were around long before you wrote about it.
That's right.
They've been around as long as business has been around. They're going to be around as long as business is around. The new article is just fabulous. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to kind of getting another surge of feedback from the practitioners, and we'll keep learning. Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Okay. Once again, mute your microphones, please. Okay. Okay. So that's what we have here. I will share the video via email. I'll send you the link as well. Okay, so what do you think about the video? Yeah, it was good. For sure it was good. That was Michael Porter. He is the founder of business strategy. He's a Harvard business professor who came up with the idea of business strategy back in early 80s, so and late 70s. So I'm asking, what did you learn? Yeah, the video will be recorded on the MLS. I mean the recorded class, so you will be able to access there. And I'm going to email you the link as well. So yeah, other than the common general terms, what did you really learn? Yeah, 5 forces. And as you saw, and as we have discussed in the past few sessions, when it comes to 5 forces, all these common terms, the competition is going among all the companies and rivals, and they're all dealing with common issues. So he was focusing on the fact that everybody in the business needs to know about it. It's like your strategy is not just some hidden, like back in the day that they would just hide their strategies as a secret. Now it's shared with even your suppliers. Today we talk about suppliers and how suppliers and buyers work together. It's like it's important to know the strategy that you're dealing with. It's important to know how please mute your microphone. And it's important to be able to internalize, all those factors. And when you're dealing with all those forces, all the 5 forces, it's only about how you deal and how you manage those differentiation aspects, or make it difficult for new entrants to come in, how you satisfy your buyers and all that. Yes. So so you start from the within, and then also at the same time you need to look at the basically your threats and opportunities, because those are roadmaps for you to be able to basically utilize what you have. Your strengths and weaknesses will be utilized most when you have vendors and opportunities, and then you need to use that in order to survive a threat, right? So that's for that. And now let us do an assignment. Yes, there is a book called Competitive Advantage by Michael Porter. He's the one who wrote that book. I have read that book, but I don't have it. I don't have that book. Okay, your assignment is, please compare a an attractive and unattractive industry using the 5 forces. Yeah, as I said, I don't have that book, and I really want to highlight this fact that books are for us to purchase or borrow from library. I don't have a soft copy of that book, and or any book, so I won't be able to send you any soft copy of any book. It's first of all, it's against the copyright law, So I'm not entitled to send anybody's work, academic work, via soft copy. You can always borrow it from library or purchase it. You have been asking these questions over and over, and I'm coming up with the same answer. I cannot send you any soft copies of any book. Even my own book, I will never send a soft copy of my own book. So some of them do, but I don't do it. I live in California, and here everybody's entitled to follow the copyright rules. So I don't ever do that. So please don't ask me this question again. I cannot send you any soft copy of any book. That book is available in libraries, or you can purchase them. And I actually do not have that book, but even if I had it, I do not have a soft copy of that book. So, and we cannot send that to students or anybody. Thank you. So going back to the assignment, please compare an attractive and unattractive industry using the 5 forces. So in this case, yes, exactly, you got it. We get back to here, right here. So please, just 2 businesses you can compare. Let's say you want to start business A and business B. So compare business A when it's attractive and to a business B that is non-attractive or unattractive, and then review it in the light of threat of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, buyers, threat of substitute products, and rivalry among competing firms. Yeah, 2 separate ones. Say basically business A, industry A is attractive because of A, B, C, D, E, and F. And then the industry B is unattractive because all those other 5 forces. So just 2 simple comparisons. I want to make sure that we are able to apply those into our everyday business. No, please do one by one. You can do like business A is attractive because threat of new entrants is high or low, and then B, bargaining power of suppliers is like that, and bargaining power of buyers is like that, and then business B is unattractive because and then do one by one cover these aspects. Yeah, just right here in the chat box. It could be 1 paragraph. It shouldn't be long. Right now, it's just right now. It's an in-class task. We are doing it right now, so you can start answering from right now. Okay. Any questions or comments about the assignment or task? Yeah, sure. A good example, let's say we choose a product, right, in the industry. Let's say fast food, and then fast food versus let's say kids clothing, or fast food versus something more difficult, which is turbo engines. So yeah, a good example, like fast food industry and turbo engine industry, or like airplane industry, or you can say flight agencies, and then versus or transportation versus clothing. You know, you can compare and say which one is, yeah, like Etisalat or communication industry, and let's say printing or publishing industry, and say which one is basically attractive and which one is non-attractive. You can talk about clothing versus food, you know. It could be, I mean, two industries that are separate. Because let's say even if it's, yeah, that's a good one. Telecommunication versus printing, yes. Yeah, heterogeneous is better. That's absolutely correct, Mr. Norstein. And then when you say, let's say, industry A is attractive because of all these factors, and industry B is unattractive because of all these factors. Yeah, so like here, if you could send the messages to everyone so everyone can see, that would be great because we want to discuss it in the class. So a threat of new entrants is better because it gains more profit. It's not complete. So threat of new entrants is when it is difficult for others to enter the market. So when the threat of new entrants is not much, so not many will enter the market, that will give you a chance of making more money because not everybody can come into that industry. So threat of new entrants is when not everybody can or cannot enter the market. Bargaining power of suppliers is when the suppliers have power over you. Bargaining power of buyers means when you as a buyer have power over suppliers. Threat of substitute products means there are different products available for people to use substitutes. And rivalry among competing firms is when the competing firms are competing against each other. Exactly. So if you could kindly compare these two together, A and B, perfect. Okay, who wants to be the first one? Who wants to do it first? Okay, telecommunication industry in Afghanistan. The threat of new entrants in the industry is limited because of telecommunication policies. Each time span between licensing. Okay, that's a good one. And once again, if you could send it to everyone so everybody can see, that would be great. Send it, choose to send to everyone. So this was sent by Mr. Shukur. The legal consulting is unattractive than the restaurant in Afghanistan. Okay? Yeah, please go on. Communication is the threat of new entrants in this industry is limited because of the telecommunication policies, even time span between licensing by the government. Because entrance is not easy for all. Okay, great. Yeah, for sure you can email it, but let's discuss it in the class. I want us to do it right now, so it's everybody understands. Because as you can see, a lot of times you understand it different, and then when you discuss it, we clarify. So it's best if you can compare it here. Business A is attractive because acceptable prices, on-time delivery, proper packaging, easy accessibility, customer-oriented services. Business B is attractive because of, oh yeah, it's you mean unattractive. Business B is unattractive because of higher prices, delayed delivery, improper packaging, services. Okay, for Mr. Baktosh, your comparison does not include the five forces model because like none of these are related to any of these. So let's say it could be attractive if it had not many entrants to that industry. Please also choose which industry you're talking about. Let's say you're talking about fast food industry. There are so many entrants could come in. So that's a negative factor when it comes to attractiveness. Bargaining power of suppliers. There's so many suppliers and so many buyers. So it's kind of balanced out in either direction. Then bargaining power of buyers. There's so many buyers out there. So they could have somewhat more bargaining power compared to suppliers. Then threat of substitutes. There's a big threat of substitutes. So that's another negative factor. Rivalry among competing firms. The competition is pretty tough. So that's what I mean. So that's unattractive in a sense. So then if you want to compare that with, let's say, plastic fork industry, you can do that as well. So then, let me tell you, how can we compare Ocean Company with, yeah, so comparing all these one by one. For example, even though rivalry is often fierce in commodity industries, it may not be the factor limiting profitability. Low returns of photographic film industry, for instance, are the result of superior substitute products. Kodak and Fuji, the world's leading products. Learning digital photography in such a situation. Then bargaining power of buyers, that it gets business to the deal, and he gets sellers work according to the buyer's need. Firm A is attractive because analyze competitors' objectives and strategy, open and ready change, adapt new product. And half it, then let's see where it is more expensive. Bargaining power of suppliers is when the suppliers have power over the buyers, meaning that the suppliers can tell you their conditions, and you as a buyer don't have that much of a power to put terms and conditions for them. Whatever they tell you, you have to accept because you as a buyer, there's so many buyers, so if you don't buy, it doesn't hurt them, so they don't care. Yeah, normally you don't do it for a person. Even like in your example that you're choosing two universities, it's not the right comparison. You're choosing industry. So university would be education industry, and then you can compare it with some other industry. Not you cannot just use from the same industry. So that doesn't make any sense. So it should be you could compare education for higher education and for undergraduate. So that could be a good comparison. But you cannot just choose two universities. That doesn't make any sense. Then bargaining power is the ability to influence the selling of prices, more contracted. Yeah, you can choose construction industry with, let's say, you could even choose construction with, uh, let's say, one of the materials, like iron or, the raw materials you have in construction. That is also applicable to see which one is which. So it has to be two separate industries, like real estate and construction. You can also do that. Even though they're kind of complementary, you can still compare them together. Different services as long as they cover two separate industries. So let's say if it's fast food, you can compare the soft drinks with the food, just the fast food and the soft drink, even though they're kind of complementary, like or the bread and the sodas, or the bread and pickles, or bread and onion, or those materials can still do that. Like food, or just fruit market, you can compare car industry. Like if you're doing in car industry, you can say even parts of the car, like tire industry, and then steel industry. The insurance sector and mining sector. Yes, you can do that. Absolutely, you got it. Highly low as there are just a few. Yes, that's a great example. Very good, Mr. Faisal. And required amount of initial capital. That's a good example. So insurance is easier than mining. So mining, as you say, it's actually an attractive market because not everybody can enter. There's not much of a bargaining power from the suppliers. Buyers have a lot of bargaining power. There are not much of substitute products. The rivalry is not that much. Or aviation and ground transport. That's a good one. Yes. Yeah, you see, you're getting it. A consultancy don't need big amount of initial capital. That's great. Yes, true. So that's actually the threat of new entrants is pretty high. Printing industry, yes, yes, you're getting there. Threat of new entrants is high. Bargaining power of suppliers are high. Bargaining power, bargaining power of buyers are high. The threat of substitute products are these two and rivalry one. Yes, very good. Yes, seems like everybody's getting the idea. Perfect. Then legal consultancy is attractive, is not easy. Yeah, you can also do like legal consultancy and marriage consultancy. You can do that. That kind of separate part. It's even though it's in the same industry, but it's like subcategories of each other. So that's a good comparison. Entrance is not easy. Most do not have the expertise. Then bargaining power of the suppliers not available. low competition. There is more firms that deliver services. Restaurants is easier. Yeah, you can compare a restaurant and legal services. Yeah, sure. The beverage industry is not unattractive. There are lots of competitors. Threat of new entrants. Yes. Banking versus business. I mean, banking versus what type of business? You could say banking versus financial consultancy. That would be, or banking, or like banking lending and or retail lending and broker lending. You can say that. Education industry versus printing industry. Okay. First industry, social growth, sort of economic characteristics. Did a force will examine these derives. Fuel energy versus solar energy. Yeah, that's a good one. Yep, that's actually a very good one, Mr. Baktosh. Yep, you can always compare the fuel energy and solar energy and see which one is more attractive and which one is less attractive. So basically, as you can see, when any business has been attractive at a certain point of time, but it might be saturated already. That's how it's unattractive now. Like real estate business back in 2005 was very attractive in the United States, but now is not as attractive as it was. So you see, these five forces will change during the time. So one industry could be attractive at a certain point of time, but during the years it might lose its attractiveness, and then it might gain it back again. So as you can see, it's like a ongoing process. You cannot just say it's attractive now and it's going to be attractive forever. It's actually changing. So it might be attractive today, but it might not be attractive next year. You know, so it's all a lot of issues, because a lot of these stuff, the five forces, a lot of them are external. It's not just within your company that you'll determine whether you're able to basically compete or not, because most of them are from outside. So the competition is from outside, threat of new entrants is from outside, everything is from outside. So it's basically a lot based on environment, right? That your business is located. Even one industry in one region or in one city might be attractive, but in another city might not be attractive. So, or in one country might be attractive and in another country might not be attractive, or in one continent might be attractive and in one continent might not be attractive. So as you can see, these are all these different aspects that you can look at. You know, you shouldn't be just limited to a certain region or a certain city or a certain country. You can always compare in different regions and countries as well. So it looks like everybody got the idea now that how we compare. It's actually two separate industries we want to compare, and then we'll look at all these factors, and then even at different like times, as we discussed, it could be different. Yeah, great. So thank you, everyone. Is there any questions or comments before we finish? Beautiful. So I did send you the slides before the class. Has everybody received the slides? Beautiful. So there are slides all the way up to the end for the next session also. So please refer to these slides if you need more, information, and also if you have any questions, we can address that. Oh, it was at the beginning. The slides that I sent you had the internal and the external together. So I sent it
together. It was 3 and 4. Yes. Yes. Normally, as we have been discussing this, Nadia, the assignments, we discussed it in the class. The only reason I want you to email it to me is because when you type it in here, I cannot basically copy and paste. I want to keep it as a record for your score. So what I need is to have them to give you your assignment a score. So every single task or assignment I give you has a score. So I want to make sure you get that score. So that's why I want you to email it to me. Yeah, absolutely. The admin will post that in the MLS today. The class is being recorded and it's saved. So yes, beautiful. So yeah, as I was talking and explaining, so that's how I just want to keep the record of those who do their assignments in the class and send it to me via email. And those of you who do not send, so of course they'll miss that score. Yes, please email it. Normally, please email it by next day, maximum next day. Sometimes you email me like 1 week after, or please make sure it's just the because as you know, yeah, if any correction is required, I always address that. But normally, what I want you to do is to do it in the class, and then when you type it in here, we can explain and discuss it. And I want you guys to basically get the idea of the concept. So like when we started today, everybody was comparing the different businesses in the same industry. So when we discuss, we understand that it has to be 2 separate industries or 2 subcategories of same industry at least. So just want you to be able to apply these to your everyday career. So that's the whole purpose of these assignments is for your own benefit to be able to apply those. No, the assignment was to compare 2 industries with regard to 5 forces. So for those of you who got late in the class, that was the assignment. It's always good for you to send it anyway. I mean, those of you who never send it to me, please make sure you send it. Miss Sami, the recorded sessions are on MLS and also on the Worldwide Science website. They have a place that you can always view all the classes according to the subjects. You can just go and watch it. You're welcome. You're well welcome. Okay, so thank you everyone again, and please make sure you send me your tasks. Thank you to those of you who have been sending those. I've received them, and for those of you who never sent, make sure you send so that at least you can get a late submission score. Otherwise, you will miss that score. Thanks to every one of you. Hope you have a wonderful night, and I'll see you next week. Yeah, my email is Puyan. Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you soon. You guys take care.